Testing. Scotty, we're good for 3 seconds in the show, guys. Welcome back to another episode of NFL Turf Talk live here on a Thursday night. Week 13 is in the rear view. We're going to get into our main takeaways, our main reactions, biggest storylines, look at the playoff seeding and matchups as they stand right now. A big-time NFC matchup tonight in the NFC North Division. The Lions host Jordan Love and the Packers. We're going to talk about that game, our best bets, what we're looking at from an Eagles fan perspective. We're also going to update our top 10 power rankings as we inch closer to January and playoff football. Guys, I'm one half your host, Dylan Davis. To my left, my faithful co-host, Scotty. The same way we start each and every one of our shows. Do yourself a favor, do us a favor. Make sure to follow us across all social media platforms, the Twitter page specifically. It's the best spot to interact with us. It's the most active we are across any social media platform we are on. Check out the link tree in our bio, though. It'll take you directly to the YouTube channels. We have this channel, we have the Philly YouTube channel, and we have the Scotty Talks NBA YouTube channel. Make sure to throw a sub to each and every one of those. We appreciate it, and is the best and only spot to get your comments pulled up like my man D-Rab is doing right now and be interactive with us throughout each and every one of the shows. Scotty, happy Thursday, man. Exciting show to get into with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is it's a special edition show, man. An actually good Thursday night football game. Actually a stellar Thursday night football game. This is probably the best game this week, I would imagine. I haven't taken like a super close look at week 14 just yet. I'll obviously do that before the weekend, and we get into that stuff on Sunday. But just glaring over it really quick, the next best game, Bills, Rams, Seahawks, Cards. Seahawks, Cards should be a good one. That means a lot. Yeah, so this is definitely the best game this week. Just wanted to double check there before I stamp it, but
it's a rarity.
I'm excited for it, man, and we have implications that impact the team that we love, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. So we have our own wants in this game as well, which makes it even more exciting. Power rankings. Did yours shake up much? I'm curious.
In totality, no. Many, if not all 10, 9 of the 10 are still remaining from last week, but there was one team that took a considerable drop inside my top 10. So just a little preview for you.
That should be fun. I'm interested to see which team that is. Yeah, I asked because not a ton of changes in mine, but to your point, there is maybe one team that dropped. Yeah. I think you're right, man. One team that dropped significantly?
There's one that got punished pretty harshly for me, and then there's another. There's one or two at the bottom that I would say are inside my top 10, but I think they're kind of lumped and grouped together with, honestly, probably 3 or 4 other teams that are right on the boundary, and I think any of those 4 or 5 teams in totality could be your 8, 9, 10 inside your power rankings, because it is that close, not just record-wise, but how I view these teams, right? No one, are they playoff contenders? For sure. They're all, 8, maybe 9-win teams. I think actually they might all be 8-win teams. But nonetheless, I don't view them as serious contenders for their conference championships. I don't view them as serious contenders to reach or win a Super Bowl. So they're kind of in that tier, which is not a bad place to be. You're just not what I would call the top 5 or top 4 of the league, which we have right now.
Is the team that you dropped, I'm not going to ask a specific name of the team, but is the team that you dropped a playoff contender or a Super Bowl contender in your eyes anymore?
Yeah, anymore. See, through that, I thought you were going to say a Super Bowl contender in general. Yes, I think they have to still be held in that regard. Little teaser, they have, if not 1, but 2 MVP candidates on their offense.
All right, we're talking about the same guys.
Yeah, we are. And I think everybody in the chat probably understands who we're talking about. But spoiler, when you're sitting at 8-5, when you've lost 2 out of your last 3 or 3 out of your last 5, you're going to continue to take a hit. And when you continue to lose test after test, you're going to take a hit. So I had them inside my top 4. They've dropped further down inside my top 10. But I do still think that they are a Super Bowl contender, man. So we'll see. Let's and guys, if you're watching right now, if you are new to the channel, if my computer freezes at any point and you see Scotty laugh, I'll be back in 2 seconds. We're trying out the Mac again. We got the booster in the basement for the Wi-Fi. It bugged out before we went live. I thought it wasn't going to work. knock on wood, we're good the first 5
right.
minutes. So hopefully we continue to chug along through this show, man. But let's take a peek back at week 13. On Sunday's show, we did go over the Thanksgiving Day slate. So we had a lot to talk about from those 3 games. The Packers and the Lions both played tonight were a part of that Thanksgiving slate that we recapped. But looking ahead to, or looking back at Sunday's slate, man, we talked enough Eagles Ravens this week. Another big AFC North battle. Steelers, Bengals, 44-38. Continues to be the weirdest, like, non-MVP campaign ever for Joe Burrow and what he's able to do this year with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and the numbers they're putting up. I saw a stat, man, earlier in the week. This is like the 3rd game the Bengals have lost this year where they've scored 34 or 35 or more points. It's like they've lost 5 or 6 games, Scotty, where they've put up 28 or 30 plus points, whatever the specific numbers are. That 30 points basically, and they have about 6 total losses in those games. But I want to talk to you about the Steelers, though, man, because it is a team that's been on this little bit of a roller coaster, right? It hasn't been a huge incline and a big drop off, but they were flying high. They were undefeated ever since putting Russell Wilson in the starting lineup over Justin Fields. They get a big win over the Baltimore Ravens and take a 2-game lead in the AFC North by only kicking field goals. And then they lose on Thursday Night Football in a blizzard to the Cleveland Browns and Jameis Winston. And now you're wondering, what exactly are the Pittsburgh Steelers and what is this offense? Because it was really the 2nd straight week, that this offense has kind of sputtered and not finished drives in the red zone. Well, Russell Wilson had some answers for us on Sunday afternoon, man. 29 of 38, 414 through the air, 3 tutties, and he threw a pick 6 to start the game to put his team down 7-0. Russell Wilson and this offense balled the F out. It's just spreading the ball around. George Pickens only had 3 catches, but led the team with 74 yards through the air. Pat Freiermuth got involved. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, the running backs, got involved. Van Jefferson with an explosive play. Cordell Patterson, Calvin Austin, Ben Skoranek with an explosive play. They spread the ball around. They ran the ball pretty effectively, averaging just over 4 yards per carry. And they scored 44 points, man, against, what apparently is a very atrocious Bengals defense this year, but nonetheless an AFC North battle where you expect that to be physical and hard-nosed and hard hitting. But basically my question is, did it show you anything about this Pittsburgh Steelers team to kind of reaffirm where we thought they were inside that top 5 or 6 across the National Football League?
Man, that is so. I'm so happy you brought this up first. It's so interesting from your perspective the way you see it, because I'm sitting on the opposite end and I'm thinking, man, they gave up 38 points. I thought this defense was supposed to be elite, and that it's crazy because what you said is completely fair. Like, if Russell Wilson is able to play at that level, it's going to be hard to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I did take into account, like, the Bengals, like, their defense must be, like, ungodly bad. Like, how many teams have scored? You just mentioned how many times they've lost with the amount of points they've scored. So what does that mean that the other team is scoring, man?
I mean, if you want me to run through these real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Repeat it.
Their losses include 25 points, 33 points, 38 points, 34 points, 27 points, and 38 points. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses with at minimum 25. That was the lowest. 25. And every other game was 27, 33, 34, 38, 38. They've lost all those football games.
Yeah. So I take it with a grain of salt is what I guess I'm trying to say, but I do think it's interesting that you view it from that standpoint, because it is fair, and for them to come out and score 44 points is 44 points. Russ had a day. Like, you don't get that amount of points. You don't score like that without playing some elite football. So I do have to give them credit, and I will say this. I think this shows, like, their ceiling of their offense can be very dangerous compared to what we saw against Cleveland, which was maybe the basement of their offense. Now, given the conditions, maybe that's a little fair, and obviously the Browns have a sturdy defense. But But no, I guess overall I would come away the same at the end of the day. Like the offense moves up the ladder a little bit for me, where the defense takes a little bit of a dip. But I will say, like you mentioned to start the segment, Joe Burrow is playing some elite football offensively right now. Right. So maybe maybe I shouldn't be, taking so much credit away from that Steelers defense just off one performance.
Exactly. I think that's the difficult thing, right? Because when they are as good as that Steelers defense is, when they've been as dominant as they've been for a while now, it's odd to see them give up that kind of performance. And you question, is this what's wrong? I think for me, looking at it from the offensive standpoint, from the 44 points, is they showed me a level that they showed me a side I haven't seen before with this team. When is the last time? I mean, it might not be that long ago. I have no idea. When is the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers won a shootout against a great quarterback, against a great opponent?
Right.
So to me, I do hear you. Like, what's up with that defense? Joey Porter got flagged like 700 times in this game. You have questions. Obviously, it's a little bit of a concern, but I guess there's a bit more trust there for me, thinking that that's not going to happen in January.
Yeah.
But knowing this offense could get there if they needed to is the different side for me. I do agree with Terry, man. You were texting me about it. I think we text about this weekly.
Yeah.
George Pickens,
super talented.
So talented, still so young, but like, dude, like I just what's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Different people, right? I don't know what's not clicking or ticking like a lot of people's heads do, but he, like Terry said, flies off the handle.
Yeah.
Quickly. I mean, brother, like we talked about it after they lost in Cleveland. He literally punched somebody in the helmet and got in a fight by the fans after the game because they lost.
Yeah.
And then said that the Browns aren't good. Well, you just lost. Every big play he made he had 3 catches.
Needs to grow up.
I would venture to say 2 of the 3 receptions he had came with a penalty after the fact.
Yeah. And he had an offensive lineman. I think it was 77, Broderick. I can't remember his last name. He's a pretty sturdy offensive lineman for the Steelers. Went up to him each time after the play and got in his face and held him and like gave him a lecture, and still it just doesn't get through his head. So it does lead me to believe, like, how annoying is this dude to fucking deal with? Like, as talented as he is, he just can't get out of his own way with the 15-yard penalties.
Because here's the thing, man, as little and silly as that sounds today,
right?
When you're talking through a magnifying glass in a playoff game, everything's going to matter.
Yeah.
And picture them in Baltimore with the Ravens, or picture the Chiefs coming there, and it's a tight game, and there's a big play. They're down 4, driving, and George Pickens gets an unsportsmanlike conduct call and negates the big play, and they're going 15 yards backwards or whatever. Like, it seems silly today. They won the game. It doesn't matter. He scored again. He's playing great with Russell Wilson. That shit cannot happen come January.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
In a big moment, and it'll be the storyline the next day on ESPN about how George Pickens went off the rails again and cost his team, etc.
I think George Pickens. I think George Pickens takes it to another level, though. Like I do think he takes it to another level.
To me, it's not diva-ish with him.
It's idiot.
It's just a loose handle. Like
I shouldn't use the term idiot. That's very insensitive. He might have like an emotional condition that he can't control his emotions. I don't know. His
actions are idiotic.
Yeah.
In those moments.
There we go.
Receivers have always captured the diva role. Right? You go back to T.O., Ocho Cinco, OBJ. They carry the diva role. What he does isn't diva-ish, right?
He's approaching Draymond Green.
Malik Neighbors gives me diva vibes. After the game, calling out his quarterback, not getting the ball throughout the game. CeeDee Lamb gives me etc. George Pickens.
Oh, man, there it is. All right. Get back in here, Dylan. We're not going to go on without you. No, just to piggyback off and kind of finish that point, Dylan will be back in here in a second. The booster did not work, unfortunately. Yeah, get that caught on camera, my man. But no, I do agree with what Dylan was ultimately saying. It's not a matter of like diva or it calling out your quarterback, not enough touches. It's not stuff like that. It's more like him getting angry in moments or getting into somebody's face after he makes a great play. And you just don't need to do it. Like after you make so many great plays, you don't need to do it after every single play. Like get in the opponent's face and make an ass of yourself. He's giving me like Draymond Greenish vibes of asshole. That's what George Pickens is ultimately given to me right now. But he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a talent. Like he's probably a top 10 favorite wide receiver for me in the NFL. I'm not saying he's a top 10 wide receiver. Top 10 as far as like skill sets for wide receivers that I like, but dude is an idiot. He's an asshole. Welcome back, my man.
I'm sticking through it. We restarted in 2 seconds and we're just gonna ride through it.
Let's get
this
it.
Is fucked up, man. This is fucked up. I mean,
I don't mean to laugh, man. You just got to laugh through the pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, as I was restarting my computer, I saw D-Rab's comment, and I'm like, oh boy, I cannot imagine what I looked like when it froze. And I rewinded the stream a bit.
Something like that.
It's a good one, but anyway, yeah, he doesn't take on that diva role for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just explaining. He's more like an asshole, like Draymond Green. You know what I mean? Like goes out of his way. You make the good plays. You make so many of them. You don't need to do it every play. You don't need to let him know. He already knows that he's getting cooked.
Correct.
So he just needs to grow the hell up. I will say that to your point, if they were to play the Ravens in the playoffs, it does make me wonder what the hell the Ravens would do to stop the Steelers offensively. So to your point, man, it was a great showing from Pittsburgh, and especially the way Russ ultimately spread the ball around.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just wanted to go back to this D-Rab comment, not stay too long on this game, but just kind of to mock the Jets a bit, but also like, where do you go from here? You fired Joe Douglas, another scapegoat. You fire your head coach and your GM. It's interesting considering the guy you brought in last year to solve all these problems seems to probably be on his way out of town, whether it's retiring and moving on from football or playing somewhere else because he's not really rejecting and quieting those rumors that are going around right now. So you scapegoated the head coach, you're scapegoating the GM. Meanwhile, the owner, who's been around forever and it's been a disaster, remains. His quarterback remains, and it's just bad, man. Like, here's what sums up the New York Jets season and Aaron Rodgers and why Aaron Rodgers needs to just hang it up.
Yeah.
There's not a bit. Let's be honest. I know it seems really bad right now. And I don't know what's not clicking. And maybe my point is it's just him. Name me a better situation for Aaron Rodgers. Name me a better duo for him to walk into that needs a quarterback that besides Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, besides a young running back like Breece Hall, with cornerstones on. Like, name me a better, more talented roster. To me, there's a culture issue that starts and ends with him. And his play just isn't enough anymore, man. It's too hit or miss. It's too inconsistent for one of the greatest throwers of the football of my lifetime and ever. What sums up this Jets season and what Aaron Rodgers is playing like right now, man, is last Sunday, he missed Garrett Wilson wide open in the right side of the end zone and overthrew him. And the very next play came back and got confused by fucking, who was it? It wasn't Dexter. No, who? Oh my God, the big it was
Leonard. Leonard Williams.
Williams.
Yeah, former Giant.
Arm out, bats the ball up, takes it to.
I saw that play.
Aaron Wilson with not a defender within 15 yards of him, missed him wide open, and the very next play throws a pick six to go the other way with a lead on their opponents inside their opponent's 10-yard line. That summarizes the quarterback that Aaron Rodgers is today and what the Jets season has been like. And it needs to end, man. It's done.
Yeah.
Like, stick a fork in it, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked at the way this season has gone for the Jets. I mean, I wasn't high enough to think that they were going to win their division. I always thought the Bills would win it, but I did think that the Jets would be right there, at least competing for the division, man. And they just can't put anything consistent together. The defense hasn't even, and to your point, I think it is a culture thing, because I think that whether it's Aaron Rodgers or it's just the overall culture of the Jets as a whole, it's leaked into the defense into certain parts of this season as well, man. And even that defense has looked like a shell of itself at times. And you look at the offensive side of things, they blame it on the offensive line. I get it, right? Like, if your offensive line isn't good, you're not going to be able to throw the ball. You're not going to be able to run the ball. But why haven't you fixed that by now, right? And maybe that's the reason Joe Douglas does have to go. Like, because I'm sitting here, I'm thinking back, and I'm like, man, like, he brought in Breece Hall, he brought in Garrett Wilson, he brought in Sauce Gardner, brought in Hassan Reddick this offseason to replace Bryce Huff. Like, he's made some moves to make this team better. Signed C.J. Mosley a couple years ago as the Ravens' best linebacker, took him away from them. Like, he's made moves over the years. Goes out and gets Aaron Rodgers, so he gets. Is that it? Like, does he get fired because Aaron Rodgers doesn't live up to the bill? Is that ultimately what it comes down to? I will throw some of the blame for the offensive line, though. I think that would fix some of their issues, but the fact there's a lack of leadership that comes from that's lacking from Aaron Rodgers, though. Well, a lack of leadership. It feels like more pointing the finger around the organization, and that's never going to work out.
Bro, he's the one quarterback I know that's 40 years old throwing 22-year-old wide receivers under the bus week in and week out. The game-ending interception throws Mike Williams under the bus.
Build your wide receivers.
That's what Mike Williams is doing in a new system with a new quarterback that was traded and talked about traded around the same time as you, Aaron.
Having fun.
Catching game-winning touchdowns against the Washington Commanders for 40 yards. That's what Mike Williams is doing right now. And that's the point. There's too much finger pointing when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Not enough accountability. He was one.
Oh, man. We'll get him back soon here. But, all right, there he goes. We got him back quicker this time.
Swinging on over here, dude. Hold on.
There we are. That's got to be so annoying, bro.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, brother.
And you know what the problem is now, too? It's before when this would happen, I could see it coming because the Wi-Fi bar would come up on my screen, and now it just isn't doing it. Now it's just like I don't know. I don't know anything's wrong until I'm still talking, and then you go, and I'm like, come on.
My reaction, I don't want to believe that it's happening, but then of course,
And both times have been great conversations too. Anyway, too much finger pointing, not enough accountability for at this point of his career. Again, like, I know they're friends. I know it's cool. No, it's more money. I get it. A lot of people do it, and especially in this day and age when all these different active players have podcasts and then they're all friends. I understand it, but like having him on the Pat McAfee show, which I think the show is hilarious. I think it's good at time. Having him on Pat McAfee once a week, again, just deflecting blame. McAfee and his show is like supposed to be like this cutting edge show. Well, since they're boys, they just throw Aaron Rodgers lollipops every time he's on the show. And there's jokes and there's laughs. And it's like, bro, you have 2 wins.
Right.
And he's over here talking about ayahuasca and going on retreats. And now by the way, there's a fucking documentary coming out about this dude in his first retreat on Netflix. So it doesn't end with him, man.
Might give that a watch.
Yeah. The culture is bad there in New York. It starts and ends with him. And the bottom line is it wouldn't matter if he was any sort of the same player. He's not. Again, I watched him miss Garrett Wilson to throw you or I know how difficult it is. You or I could have delivered that football potentially. Misses him by like 4 yards and then turns around and throws a pick 6 to a defensive tackle the next play. That's not Aaron Rodgers. So I would say just hang it up.
How much does this season tarnish his career? Like to Darius's
That's the
point.
thing, man. And I think that's what sucks is I think year one of me and you doing this podcast, we talked about this exact same situation with Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same. Like Rodgers still has it physically a little more than what Ben had at that point of his career. But we talked about knowing when to go out at the right time. And it sucks seeing guys go out too early or when they still have it.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, and hindsight's 2020, but in hindsight, I'd rather see these legends go out in the vision I'll remember them for and not what I'm seeing right now. And then you add in the personality of it all and just everything he does publicly, and it just makes you not like the person. And then you see him on the football field, and it's like, yeah, he really is. No, yeah, it's like
another asshole.
All right, think about the tone you're setting in May and June when you're in Maui or wherever the fuck he is in Fiji, and everybody else is there. And they're being asked about it daily, and no one knows where Aaron is because he's not communicating with anybody. And then he gets fined.
On ayahuasca.
Think about that, bro. You're a grown man. The 20-something-year-olds are showing up, and you, the leader, are not.
And see, you talk about culture. So just imagine having him and then Hassan Reddick in your locker room this season, or not in your locker room this season. So they've got issues. I don't know where they go next. I guess their plan is to clear house outside of their young guys. That sounds pretty good to me, honestly. Yeah, clear Aaron Rodgers. You already got rid of the coach, the GM. You can get rid of some of those older guys on defense and just kind of restock and go at it again. Zach Wilson didn't work. Aaron Rodgers didn't work. So, yeah, I guess that's why Joe Douglas ultimately got canned when you really look back at it.
Right.
The most important position, right, quarterback. And he just hasn't gotten it right, man. But, yeah, the thing about Aaron Rodgers, and to your point why he should retire, is where are you going to go next? There is no better place than where you're at right now.
Saying.
Las Vegas? Fuck no, you're not going to Las Vegas.
Well, that's the other thing.
Adam just came from there.
As a fantasy football owner of Brees Hall, that was my next question to you. Coming into this year, was Brees Hall not thought of as a top 5 running back across the National Football League?
Some people were saying top 3.
Top 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
Coming into this year, when you're talking about fantasy football and then you're hearing the reports come out of Jets camp, Brees Hall is a 3-down back. Brees Hall will not be leaving the field. Aaron Rodgers was mic'd up in the preseason saying to Brees Hall, you don't come out unless you have to. Within 3 weeks of the regular season, Braylon Allen was sharing carries, and now there's another guy in the mix.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
So again, organizationally, it's messed up. You trade for Devontae Adams when you have a losing record. It solves nothing.
Yeah.
Not that you gave up the farm for Devontae Adams. I still would have made the trade if I was them in hopes of turning things around, but it didn't. And I think that's a thing that is kind of weird, man. But,
no, I agree. This is interesting, man. You talk about Brees Hall, you talk about Bijan. Both guys, they're not having Bijan's having a better season than Brees Hall, but they're not having
the Falcons don't use Bijan either like they should.
They don't use him enough. Yeah, I agree. The offense should be focused around him, not Kirk Cousins throwing the ball 40 times. But if you look around the league and you got Saquon, you got Derrick Henry, and you got Josh Jacobs leading the league in rushing on other teams.
Right.
So, maybe running backs that are great and put up great numbers are that. Maybe it's not the system. Trust me, I know that Derrick Henry is living good with Lamar Jackson and Saquon's living good with Philadelphia, right? But there is something in the pudding when you have the same 3 guys leading the way in rushing, and they're on completely different teams. I know they went to good teams, but still, man.
Dude. Quick side
it's
note,
interesting.
You brought
the value's gone down.
How the fuck did we lose a game to Kirk Cousins with 90 seconds left? This dude stinks.
It took some out-of-character stuff from Saquon Barkley at the end. And trust me, I'm not blaming Saquon for that loss. He did drop a pass.
You all right? Cooper DeJean
Makes
wasn't on the
those
football
plays.
field yet.
Cooper DeJean wasn't on. Our
Toby
defense was looking
Dean
sorry.
and Jalen Carter weren't these versions of themselves just yet, right? But like, I'm watching him. I texted you probably like 4 times, just cracking up because every time they tuned into the Chargers Falcons game, which was never more than like a 1 possession game,
Yeah.
it was Kirk Cousins throwing an interception.
How many did he throw? How many did he throw this week? 4. Okay.
Not 1,
Wow.
not 2, not 3, but 4. And correct me if I'm wrong. Did one of them go to the house?
Yeah, it did. I remember seeing it. Yes, I do. Now that you say that, I remember seeing it on
crazy, right?
on Red Zone.
Yeah, he threw a pick 6 in the third quarter. And then,
Is that the one
like
that
the
sealed
very
it?
next possession or two after that, he marches them down the field and then threw a rainbow into the back of the end zone right to a defender and a triple team to Kyle Pitts. Like it was.
I thought you were gonna say it's like 2 Kyle Pitts or something, but no, it's a defender.
No. Like no, he didn't bounce back. Yeah, no, there was no like, oh, nice drive, Kirk. Like followed it up with another awful interception.
The pick 6 ended the game. Well, not technically, but basically that was the last score for the Chargers in that game. And that's ultimately how the Falcons lose. But yeah, they're just a weird team. Like who's going to win that division?
I know.
The Buccaneers?
Maybe.
They're the most they're like have they played Atlanta? They had to have played Atlanta, but did they play them with their players? See, the Falcons beat the Buccaneers 31-20. Oh, they beat the Bucks twice.
Yeah, they did.
Interesting. How the hell?
But, brother, this is why football will never. Sports just don't make sense to me. They just don't. Like Kirk.
How did they beat the Bucks twice, but the Lions and the Eagles can't beat the Bucks?
Right.
Nah, I know that we've talked about that, but no, man, the Falcons, they're a weird team. Do they scare you at all in the playoffs?
No. First of all, they don't scare me regardless. And then you're going to give me Kirk Cousins in January?
Fair. Yeah, in the link,
possibly
yeah.
On prime time? Like I know it's on me. He beat us in prime time and put that whole story to bed earlier in the year. Oh my God. Yeah, dude, I would.
That's fair.
I'm going to be honest with you. Looking around the playoff picture, Atlanta might be like my most favorite team that I would want to come here and play.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about it, but I'd rather play them than Tampa Bay. I'd rather play them than the Rams. I'd rather play them than probably Seattle. I'd rather play them than Green Bay. I'd rather play them than who?
Washington?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
I
know we handled the Rams. I know we handled Washington.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying, but I'm saying like matchup. Yeah, feed me Kirk Cousins in January rather than Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua or that Seahawks defense maybe playing well. You never know. So,
I agree completely.
Speaking of that division, dude, though, how many games? Like, I feel like we've all been so focused on the Chiefs squeaking away with wins week after week because they're the Chiefs and eyes are always on them and everyone wants them to lose. How many are the Minnesota Vikings the second luckiest team in the league this year? I'm being said. How many games are they going to come away with a walk-off field goal or a blocked field goal to end the game or something like literally? How many one-possession games is this team going to win this year?
Are they a good team?
No, I'm sorry. They're just not. They're not.
They're 10-2.
Well, the Eagles were 10-1 last year. And I know I know we had that steep fall off, but hey, 10-win teams can be pretty bad teams when the spotlight gets too bright. And I'm sorry, man. Sam Darnold, he's just not going to do it. And it's not that he's been bad. He was fine, 235, 2 touchdowns against Arizona. He wasn't bad. I just don't.
Where do they rank for you in the NFC?
In terms of Eagles or in terms of overall picture?
Just NFC, but if you want to look at it from Eagles' perspective, that's fine.
Overall picture, I'd say 4 or 5.
Eagles, Lions,
Packers. Then maybe Vikings. If not, maybe there's one more team above them. So 4 or 5 in that regard. Look, I'll tell you. Do I want to put my foot in my mouth? If the Bucs were healthy, if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I know Chris Godwin's done for the year, but if they were healthy, I would rather play the Vikings than the Bucs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep me honestly, bro. I'll go ahead and say it. Like, keep me away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. Now, bring them to the link. I mean, it's a little bit different, but like, yeah, let's just stay clear of them. There's like some bad juju in that matchup, but Minnesota is a very interesting team because I'm just trying to like decide, like, are they good enough defensively to be a good team in the postseason? Do they run the ball well enough? Right? They have Justin Jefferson, but still, it's just Sam Darnold. I have to see it to believe it. That's what it comes down to. I have to see it to believe it. And even when I do see him win games, I don't believe it, man. But I need to see it, especially in the postseason in a tough environment against good competition. I need to see him perform. We don't really know what teams like the Cardinals are. Here's the way I'm looking
at the playoff picture in the NFC specifically from an Eagles lens and just from an overall lens, right? If you do not have one of the top quarterbacks in the league, you better have one of those loaded rosters, right? Like you better be like the 49ers of the past, a team like the Lions, all the talent the Eagles have. If you do not have one of those, if you do not have a quarterback that puts fear in somebody and you're not one of those top 6 rosters across the league, you don't scare me. So looking across this playoff picture, I'm not scared of the Packers. I'll keep the 9-win Packers in the conversation just for this. But you go beyond that, man. You're talking Sam Darnold and the Vikings. You're talking Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. You're talking Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. You're talking Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Like, that's your playoff picture. There's not a single one of those teams that has one of those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks that you do not want to see in January, and they're not loaded across the board like the Niners have been in the past, like the Lions, like the Eagles, etc. So this is why it's the most not wide open, just the most wide open for those top select teams for me.
No, I agree. Do you think this Vikings team, do they have a 2017 playoff performance in them? A 38-7? Is that what it was?
No,
38-7, Case Keenum.
Oh, you're talking about that.
Talking about Case Keenum,
yeah. I think their defense is possibly too good for that. But again, you never know, man. Like, we haven't seen the Eagles at the link in January against that defense. So I can sit here and talk about Brian Flores and how he's looked this year. Wait till Saquon Barkley punches you in the mouth a couple times, and then let me know how you respond from that. But I don't think the Vikings, are good enough. Even sitting at 10-2, they keep squeaking by, and it's getting very annoying because even at 5-0 and 5-1 and 6-1, you and I were sitting here like, man, they have to fall off. Then they lost 2 games in a row, and we're like, oh, there it is.
Here it comes.
Now they've won about 4 or 5 in a row again.
5 in a row.
So. But again,
so they got the Falcons, Bears, Seahawks, Packers, Lions to finish the season.
Right. But can I read you who this winning streak is against?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Colts, the Jags, the Titans, the Bears, the Cardinals.
And some of those scores are like ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like 12-7.
12-7 against the Jags. You had a block a field goal against the Bears to walk off that game. And then I'm pretty sure they just had to kick a field goal against the Cardinals to walk off that game. So, yeah, they're just not playing that level of football that they were earlier. And that's why they just don't. Yeah, I'm good on Minnesota.
12-7 sounds like a suck off.
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah.
Pastor Rim says
the ball either, man.
He says the Chiefs suck, bro. They didn't compete. They played down to their competition. That's what I'm labeling them as right now. They could have some 2023 Eagles in them. They could, but I'll give them the label of playing down to their competition because they beat some decent teams this season. But
I don't know. Again, we talked about them on Sunday because they played on Black Friday.
Right.
I don't know, man. I'm done trying to figure it out. The rest of this year, the rest of the regular season is just moot to me for them. Like,
Yeah,
that's it. Like,
it doesn't
until
matter.
January hits. And I told you, the first playoff game, I am not throwing money on the Chiefs game. I am not fading them, and I am not backing them until I see whatever side of the line gets drawn, right? And how they look in that game. Because if you fade them, we've done that one too many times, and Mahomes will look like Mahomes. And now everybody is in trouble again. And if you back them, maybe this is the year that they fall off for a second and Kelsey can't wind back the clock and they had too many injuries and et cetera. So we'll see, man. 2 more games before we ended it with tonight's game, and we'll run through power rankings pretty quickly. Bills handle the Niners. Sorry, Terry, in the snow. Josh Allen has one of the craziest throw, catch, run touchdowns, exemplifying his MVP candidacy, man. What do you think of the MVP conversation right now? Is it a 3-leg race right now, 3-person race, being Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, and Lamar Jackson? The thing that frustrates me, man, is even as a Saquon supporter, like if Saquon breaks the record, then it should go to Saquon. But if he doesn't, right, Lamar Jackson would be the MVP, but you can't be 8-5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at some point the record plays a factor. Because if it didn't, Joe Burrow would be a tops of the MVP conversation.
Right.
And I understand 8-5 is not the same thing as what the Bengals are doing right now, but it's literally going to take like Lamar and the Ravens to basically win out for him to be in that to be atop the MVP conversation. Because if Josh goes and wins the number 1 seed with less talent, and they win 15 games, 14 games, it's going to be hard not to give it to him. But if we're being honest, Lamar's numbers are astronomical to Josh's.
It's tough,
and
man. It's tough.
Lamar and the Ravens beat the fucking brakes off the Bills earlier this year, head to head.
Yeah, and it's like, man, if they get to double-digit wins, like, are we? You know what I mean? How much do the wins like truly matter?
Right.
Like, if the Ravens get to 10 or 11 wins,
what if the Bills go 14-3 and the Ravens go 12-5?
Right, and let's just say both quarterbacks play at the pace that they're playing at right now, right? And the stats just pile up.
To be fair, Lamar has not played well like 2 of the last 3 weeks or the last 3 weeks.
Fair.
So he is himself playing his way out of the conversation, but still his numbers are so ridiculous.
And see, maybe that's where it should be at right now. It should be that Lamar was already ahead in the race. And now it should be here. You know what I mean? Like maybe Josh just a little bit, but like Josh as a runaway, no, I can't go that far. Let me just see what their schedule looks like the rest of the way too.
Hold on, we're doing this. Where's 2-6? Where do you place 2-6?
It's hard to answer like non-biased. Like it's impossible to answer non-biasly.
If he breaks the record, he has to win.
Yeah, if he breaks the record, and I was going to say
talking about the all-time rushing record over 2,105 yards.
He also needs to like outpace Derrick Henry as well, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he needs to have 200 more rushing yards than Derrick Henry. Like, if he's approaching 2,000 and Derrick Henry has 2,000, then, like, I just feel like it kind of diminishes Saquon's MVP pitch, if that makes sense. But get some more touchdowns. Definitely, if he gets anywhere close to 2,000 rushing yards, man, like, you're telling me he gets 1,800 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, and he has 11 rushing touchdowns. How many receiving touchdowns does he have?
3, 2 or 3.
Receiving 2. So he has 13 total touchdowns right now. If he gets to 15, 16, 17, along with 1,800 rushing yards? Because, I mean, what? There's 5 games left? Is that right? 5 games? Maybe he misses the last one. They rest him. He's not going to get 300 more yards?
I don't think they're going to like. I think they're going to need.
They're going to have to play the whole season because of the Lions, and so you're telling me he's not going to get 400 more yards? Like 1,900 rushing yards? Like it's so tough because
the last running back, because it is
who was the last one?
Award, the last running back to win it is Adrian Peterson in 2012. He damn near 8 yards shy of tying the record. He had 348 carries for 2,997 yards and scored 13 touchdowns. Now, they played one less game back then, so in 16 games. So 13 touchdowns in 16 games and just under 2,100 yards. You were talking about Saquon Barkley being just 2 touchdowns under that with 102 less carries and under 600 yards away.
Yeah. So, and let me put it this way. What Saquon has done this season is more impressive than what Josh Allen has done, in my opinion.
See, that's the thing, man.
I do get it. Josh is playing without weapons, but his numbers they don't like jump off the page, man. They have been able to run the football with James Cook. Like, the Eagles, for example, are last in passing attempts in the NFL, and they're 10-2. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if the Eagles get the number 1 record in the NFC or even the NFL, and Saquon's leading the league in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and he's approaching the record, and he doesn't get MVP? That sounds crazy. That sounds kind of crazy.
Because I'm petty like this.
Yeah, talk to me.
I do think Josh's year is being a little overinflated. And don't get me wrong, it's impressive as hell. And the way he's cut back the turnovers is impressive. But let me ask you a question, man. Like you kind of pointed it out. Why is Josh getting the recognition he's getting? Because the stats are very good. They're not otherworldly, right? Why is he getting the recognition? Because he's 10-2 with, Stephon Diggs moved on, a lack of help, right?
Yeah.
So Josh Allen today with 5 games remaining, right? Technically, it would be 4 if it was the regular, old rules. Josh Allen today has a 64.6 completion percentage. Or no, I'm sorry, that's that's on the year. 64.6% completion percentage, just under 2,700 yards, 20 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and a 103.3 QBR. Carson Wentz in 2019, not 17, in 2019, when they won the division, when he had Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward and me and you, no receiver over 500 yards themselves, had a 64% completion percentage. That's what Josh has. 4,039 yards. Josh is like 1,200 yards away from that at the moment. Or no, I'm sorry. Like 1,500 yards away from that at the moment in 4 less games than Carson. With a 27-7 touchdown to interception ratio and a 93.1 quarterback rating. We talked about it in 2019, but was Carson Wentz regarded as like an MVP favorite that year in 2019?
No.
4,039 yards, 64% completion percentage, 27-7 TD to INT ratio, won his division with no single receiver having 500 receiving yards that year.
How many? What did he have any like rushing stats? Just to be fair,
it's a great question. Let's find out. I understand that adds in. Excuse me, because we talked.
Josh is he's at his lowest total this year for rushing as well, though. Like he does have 6 rushing touchdowns, though.
He scored a touchdown with 243 rushing yards in 2019.
And so Josh is at 334 rushing yards right now. 6 touchdowns, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
So 6 touchdowns.
I get it.
But
I'm just saying.
Yeah, man. I don't know.
The only thing I'm just throwing out there is I feel like Josh is getting this talk because of the lack of help. And it's like he should be in the conversation. He might be the favorite. I'm not saying he's just not. I'm saying like that's a stupid sticking point if we go around recent history.
Yeah.
Compared to like again, what Lamar because let's not act like the Ravens and Bills just didn't play each other this year. We're gonna act like that didn't happen. That
it is recency bias too, though, man. That's a lot of it. That's a lot of it.
That thumping that he took to Lamar Jackson in that game earlier this year.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and it's like we discussed on. Was it Sunday that we? No, it wasn't Sunday. I don't think because it was after. Maybe it was Monday on our morning show. But Jalen Hurts has if you put the rushing and the passing numbers together, they have exact same numbers basically. So why isn't Jalen Hurts an MVP candidate?
I agreed, and
He's not.
I'm sorry.
He's not.
Man. I'm sorry. You cannot tell me Lamar Jackson shouldn't be the favorite today. If the Bills win 4 more games than the Ravens or 5 more games than the Ravens this year, so they're not going to, but I'm just throwing that out there. Then okay. Like if the Ravens finish 11-6 and the Bills finish 15-2 or 14-3, I can hear you out. If they finish a game or two different and the numbers are what they are, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Scotty, Lamar Jackson has a 67% completion percentage, 3290 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns to 3 picks, and a 116.3 quarterback rating. He's smoking him in every category, and we know he doesn't have the 6 touchdowns that Josh does, but we know he's got rushing numbers on the year.
I mean, let me just check.
678 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground this year. He's the MVP.
He doubled his yards up. He doubled his yards up, but Josh doubles his touchdowns up. So yeah, man, I agree. Like when we're splitting hairs here of 3 more losses that the Ravens have. If we get to the end of the season, like you said, and they're 4 or 5 wins in differential, right? Then sure, let's go with Josh Allen. But it almost feels like, I don't want to call it like a token, but it's almost like he's just getting it because of a stipulation. Do you know what I mean by that? It's not like he actually deserves it. He just happens to be the best of the rest.
Same thing goes on in the NBA. How much is it voters fatigue? Because Lamar's the 2-time MVP. Josh doesn't have one. Josh, he's limiting the turnovers this year. It's his year. He beat Patrick and the Chiefs.
Because D-Rab said Josh is minus 275.
That's ridiculous.
To win MVP right now.
In the moment, I understand 8-5 versus 10-2 it's a big difference. If the Ravens finish 12-5 and the Bills finish 14-3, you can't just go off of he won more games. 12-5 is fun. It's not like Lamar went 10-7. So, yeah.
And they have Barkley ahead of Lamar, which is interesting to me. Lamar at plus 750, Goff at plus 1200, then Mahomes, then Hurts. But yeah, I think it's between those top 3 as of right now. It's funny though. Derrick Henry does have some pretty good numbers too, man. Maybe that's kind of weighing into Lamar's situation too. But what's James Cook look like this year? I mean, from my fantasy numbers, he's had a hell of a season. So
703 yards, 11 touchdowns. So
half the yards that Saquon has. But no, it is. It's an interesting conversation, though. It's an interesting conversation nonetheless.
11 touchdowns is pretty crazy, though. Last little thing from week 13. What the enigma that is Jameis Winston.
Oh, my God.
I just want to...
bless his heart, man.
I've seen this conversation on Barstool a couple days ago. Is he your favorite player to root for that you don't want on your team? You don't want Jameis Winston as your quarterback. Backup quarterback, barely having to play with his spirit and his effort, sure. You don't want him playing quarterback for you. But
he's fun.
When he's quarterbacking for someone else on primetime, how do you not root for the team Jameis Winston is quarterbacking for?
He's fun to watch, man. 497 yards against that Denver Bronco defense.
I saw a number, again, from Barstool. They were talking about it. Because he threw 2 pick sixes, mind you, in this game. One went almost 100 yards. If you add together the 6 touchdowns he threw, 2 pick sixes and 4 passing touchdowns, add in the total yards from all the points scored off of his passes, he threw for like 780 yards or some shit, 750 yards.
Because those pick sixes were long.
Long, dude. Like 192. Like, he threw.
And I was sweating, bro. Because I had the Browns as +10. I had them +10. And they had to push it to the fucking limit, man. Oh my God. I was just praying that the Broncos didn't get arrogant.
He threw the ball 58 times. I mean, hey, at least Stefanski just say, let it fly.
They let Jerry Jeudy have a game
already. Let's just have fun. Let's just go out there and sling the rock.
Bro, is Jerry Jeudy wide receiver 1? Like, in material? Like,
you know what's crazy? I'm pretty sure I saw Jerry Jeudy didn't win AFC Offensive Player of the Week. I think they gave it to Josh Allen or someone else. Like, that is, I swear to God. I'm not
because
kidding.
Josh Allen scored 3 different types of touchdown. Yeah. Like, that's
I'm being that serious.
What the fuck? Like, 9 receptions, 235 yards. Like, come on.
Yeah.
No, that was a great game. He was talking the whole time.
Would be like Saquon not winning the week he went for 255.
But Lamar, he had 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. He gets it.
Right.
No, it was crazy how this game ended up. When you look at the defenses, it turned into a shootout somehow. Bo Nix didn't have great numbers either, man. 294, 1 touchdown, 2 INTs. So, yeah, this actually moved the Broncos down, even though they won. Like, I was actually unimpressed with this W. But I guess it's a good time to get into those power rankings, man. And then
man, let's get into them and then into this Thursday night football game, and we'll get on out of here. We got about 40-ish minutes until that game starts.
I gotta get my bets in.
Yeah. My top 10, Scotty, I believe it is the same from last week. I have included the same top 10 teams. Again, I would say anywhere from 8 or 9 and probably down to like 12 or 13 could all make the case, right? There are a couple honorable mentions that I really don't have too much of a reason giving an edge to somebody else for. I think it's just a little bit more quarterback play and who I think could maybe make a deeper postseason run, potentially win a game. I don't know. Starting off at number 10, I do have the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert and the crew with Harbaugh. Who are they coming off of? The Falcons win. That's right. Kirk Cousins pick sixes.
So such an unappealing game, but
such an unappealing. That's why I was so forgetful, because they lost the week before to the Harbaugh Bowl. But they're 8-4. Harbaugh is Justin Herbert playing his best football? Like less again. So we just talked about Josh Allen for all that time with less talent around him. They strip down Austin Eckler. They take away Keenan Allen. They take away Mike Williams. He's got less and less and less, and he's just playing more consistent winning football this year with Harbaugh. They found a way to run the ball with Dobbins and Edwards a little bit. That defense has been opportunistic. You went on the road against a team that's trying to fight for their division lead, and you held them to 13 points and won. So I do have the LA Chargers coming in at number 10. At number 9, man, this is a team that won, but just continues to unimpress me, and that is the Houston Texans. They won. They have a defender suspended for 3 games with what might be one of the dirtiest hits I've seen in recent memory. I don't want to let recency bias fly too far, but it was incredibly dirty. With Shire, Joe Mixon goes for 101. Nico Collins goes for 119. Stroud has a pretty good day. And yet you only beat the Jags by 3 points again. I don't understand what the disconnect is with this team. The numbers seem fine on the canvas. They're just not the dominant football team. Again, they're an 8-win team, though. So I have the Texans coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8, I had the 10-win Minnesota Vikings. We talked about them at length. They could be higher. They have more wins than a bunch of teams ahead of them. I do not care. Sam Darnold, this 5-game fraud win streak they're on, how they're winning these games. This is the team that I would not care if I had to see them in the NFC playoff picture. So I had them at number 8, and now we get a little tighter. Coming in at number 7, I have Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe I had dropped them to 8 last week with their loss to Jameis and the Browns. They slide up a spot. Very impressive win, 44 points. But I think to your point, seeing their if they would have won 44-24, then, you're talking a top 5 team. The fact their defense showed that they were leaking oil that way, it made me question it a little bit. And these teams ahead of them are just playing very, very good at the moment. I'm sorry, I am reading the wrong list. Dill, I'm reading last week's list. So, same teams. I was wondering, because I'm like, wait a second. No, there's supposed to be a team that's much, much lower. Here we go.
Okay.
Texans 10, Chargers 9, Vikings 8. That's the same 3. I flip-flopped the Texans and the Chargers, okay? There we go. Sense. Number 7. Here's the big drop-off. The Baltimore Ravens. You've lost 2 out of your last 3. You've lost to the Eagles, who are inside the top 10 ahead of you. You lost to the Steelers, who are inside the top 10 ahead of you. Lamar Jackson has not played that well over the last 3 games, even though we just read all of his numbers from on the season so far. The way that they got handled by the Eagles, man, was really a question for me, because I go back and I kind of looked them over, and I know they handled the Bills like we talked about earlier in the year. But whether it was a toenail or not, you've lost to the Chiefs. You've lost to the Steelers. You lost to the Eagles. At what point do you pass a test? Because that's as Eagles fans, we were looking for these tests. Pass. How many fails are you going to get before I have to continue to deduct points? The Ravens were deducted this week. They're coming in at number 7. The Steelers are there at 6. Very, very impressive offensive showing. They beat the Ravens a few weeks ago. They have the edge there and in the AFC North. Now I get to my top 5. I have the Green Bay Packers, who play tonight, coming in at number 5, 9-win team. I believe Romeo Doubs is out tonight. Josh Jacobs, like you mentioned, number 3 in rushing this year on his new team. Jordan Love, can he protect the football? Think he's been doing a better job of it over the last couple of weeks. That team can put up points. So I have them at number 5. Number 4, I have your Kansas City Chiefs. And I believe this is where we stay the same from last week. It is. I have the Chiefs at 4. I had the Bills at 3. I had the Lions at 2. I have the Eagles at 1. All 4 of these teams are coming off of wins from last week, some more impressive than others. But when you are in my order like that, and when you all win games, you are most likely going to stay right there. And I think they kind of were impressive as that. The way I look at it, man, the Chiefs, 11 wins, only 1 loss still on the year, but just continue to be, you can't deduct Patrick Mahomes that much. And then my basic question is this. I'm keeping the Eagles at 1. At number 2 and 3, would I take the Lions or Bills to win a football game tomorrow? I would give the edge to the Detroit Lions in that offense and that offensive line today. So for that reason, I still have the Bills 3, Lions 2.
Fair enough, man. Yeah, we have the exact same teams, a little bit different order, but nonetheless, I'll try to go through a little quickly here because a lot of the same points you made, man. I got the Texans at number 10. Like you said, they have talent. The numbers have been there on and off, right? Just not putting it together, man. I don't know if it's CJ Stroud. I don't know if it's like the identity, the culture with this team. I saw, after that dirty hit, I saw D'Amico Ryans saying some questionable stuff after the game, like trying to not defend it, but almost like blame Trevor Lawrence for the way he slid. Like, no, he's just sliding. He's a quarterback. That's what they do when they give themselves up. So I don't know if it's a culture thing. I don't know what it is there, but there's something disconnected. They are going to be without Stephon Diggs the rest of the year, but Tank Dell hasn't looked the same this year. I look at Nico Collins since he's gotten back from injury. You're still waiting for like that pop off. He's looking like one of the best receivers in the NFL before the injury. He's got to get back into it. The Texans just don't look right, but they come in at number 10. Number 9, I went with the LA Chargers for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. They run the football well. Justin Herbert's playing some clean football. Their defense is sturdy. The thing that I like about their offense this year, I don't know if it's Harbaugh. I don't know if it's Justin Herbert just unleashing a different part of his game. He's been using his legs, man, and he's got some legs on him, man. He can move. So I like what they're doing there. I think that adds another dynamic factor to their offense. They're an interesting team that I'll definitely keep my eye on the rest of the year just to see how they finish, because they're another one of those teams it's hard to believe when they're sitting there with a winning record. So I'm still a little skeptical, but they've earned this spot here at 9. Number 8, I went with the Baltimore Ravens, so they did drop quite a bit for me. I had them at number 5 last week, so they did. They dropped quite a bit. As much as good as I think the Eagles are, as great as I think the Eagles are, you can't lose at home to the Philadelphia Eagles if you are going to be this juggernaut Super Bowl contender in the AFC. So it did knock them down a tier, and their defense played well, man. Like 24 points to the Eagles is not like a bad day for the Ravens. The offense couldn't do anything. Maybe it's, gives kudos to that Eagles defense, of course, but I just expect better from Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Quite frankly, in that game, Dylan, like 9-0 at the beginning, like they had several opportunities to basically put the Eagles away, and they really didn't even get close at certain points. So the Ravens, I'm skeptical of at this point. Number 7, I ultimately went with the Minnesota Vikings. To your point, man, these 3.5 point victory, 12-7. Just a very weird and fraudulent looking team, but I'm going to give them some respect by putting them in the top 10 with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. They come in at 7. We'll see, man. We'll see. I am a little, I don't want to use the word intrigued. I'm interested, man. I'm interested to see how they finish. Can they finish with 11, 12, 13 wins this season? Which they probably will have 11. Let me be frank. They're at 10 already, but can they finish with 14 wins in that division? They're going to play the Lions and Packers to finish the season, so we'll see. At number 6, I went with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They moved up this week, right? Like, as I mentioned, I am skeptical of them to a certain extent after that defensive performance, because the defense is supposed to be their calling card.
Right.
But in return, to your point earlier made in the show, at the beginning of the show, the way Russell Wilson played in this game, the way he was able to throw the ball and spread the ball around, the way that Pittsburgh offense was able to move the ball and score points, it showed you another side, another way that the Steelers can win. So giving them credit where it's due, they move up a little bit here. Coming in at number 5, I went with the Green Bay Packers, man. I think they are kind of that next team in the NFC, man. It just feels like it. It feels like Jordan Love is that next guy after Jalen Hurts, after Jared Goff and such, at the top of the NFC. So we'll see what the Packers can do tonight. This is going to be huge for them, obviously. Number 4, I have the Chiefs. These close wins, like I said, they're a team that's playing down to their competition this year, and they can beat anybody, they can lose to anyone, and that's not always a good thing, right? Number 3, I went with the Bills, 10-2. They speak for themselves. They've been playing some really good football. Obviously, Josh Allen leading the way in the MVP conversation right now, so got to give them some credit. I went with the Lions at number 2, man. The Eagles, it's more about the Eagles than it is the Lions. It's not the Lions' fault. Yeah, it's not the Lions' fault. It's not their fault that they moved down in my rankings this week. It was just a very impressive win by the Philadelphia Eagles on the road against a team that I do look at the basis of this season as a Super Bowl contender, the Baltimore Ravens. Doesn't look as great right now, but things can change. I do think Lamar and Derrick Henry are one of the best dynamic duos in the NFL. And I was very, very impressed. Just think the Eagles are playing a little bit better than the Lions right now, honestly. The Lions are on a hell of a win streak. Of course, they're 11-1. They have a better record. But I do think the Eagles, when we're looking at 2 losses versus 1. I just think the Eagles are playing better football right
That's what I'm saying, man. When we talked about that Lamar, Josh Allen MVP conversation, and we get into the win-loss columns, right? And we pay so much attention to it. It's very similar like that for me when it comes to the two teams in the NFC being the Eagles and the Lions. Because we talked about this on the Faithful Fanatic show, and I know we're going to talk about the Eagles passing game and the Jalen Hurts question marks that people are having all of a sudden tomorrow afternoon. But I do it's very similar because there's a disconnect between people's minds and mine when they talk about this, how the Lions have been playing great ball all year, but the Eagles are the hot team right now. 11-1, 10-2. Neither team has lost a game since week 4.
Right.
You know what I'm like? They've both been playing outstanding football the entire year. We just gave the Eagles more flack in the moment at 2-2 compared to Lions being 2-1. They both lost to the Buccaneers. The only difference is the Eagles lost to the Buccaneers with no A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, or Devontae Smith on the road in 120-degree weather. The Lions lost at home fully healthy to the equal opponent. So we're talking about splitting hairs of one game, man. Just take it, again, if you want to go roster, if you want to go position by position, if you want to go how they've been playing, who they've been beating, etc. I think to your point, mine staying the same because I had bumped the Eagles up last week.
Yeah.
You moved them this week. Context matters. Eagles handled the Ravens after handling the Rams, after handling the Commanders. The Lions got Matt Eberflus fired because of the ending on that. So, I think it's 1,000% correct and okay to talk about the Eagles as the best team in the National Football League right now because they just deserve it. That's the bottom line. They are deserving of being looked at in that light right now. It's not a slight at the Bills. It's not a slight at the Lions. It's not to say that the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl and the Lions will not and cannot beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not saying that at all. But it's almost like it gets talked about in the reverse. Josh Allen's the MVP, not Saquon Barkley.
Who do you think
would the NFC, not the Eagles?
Who do you think would win a game out of the Packers and Bills?
I would stick with the Bills. I think the Packers are another one of those teams, man, that they just don't have the name. They just don't. I don't know what it is. I don't buy into to Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson and what's the one dude's name? Dontavian Wicks and Tucker Kraft, right? And on top of it, their quarterback has 11 interceptions. So if I'm being honest, I don't know how they're 9-3. They've been with Malik Willis for 3 or 4 of their games out of their 12 this year. So it's props to LaFleur. It's props to that defense. It's props to Josh Jacobs. It is props to the entire team and Jordan Love.
Yeah.
But they just don't have the it factor on the roster that I'm talking about. To me, here's what it is before we get into predictions for tonight. It is the Lions and the Eagles. Then it's the Packers. Then it's everybody else. The Packers are in this weird middle space where I think they are more talented than everybody else in the NFC. I would pick them over anybody else in the NFC, but I don't think they are NFC championship worthy, Super Bowl championship worthy conversation.
I do think I look at the Packers a little differently, man. I think I just when you say they don't have the it, I think that Jordan Love can be the it. And that's kind of why I feel that way about the Packers. I do think he's talented, man. I think just watching him play a couple times this season and last year, obviously having the season he's had, yes, he can definitely get a little loose with the ball. But I do think he has some major arm talent going on back there. And they can run the football. They have a pedigree. They have an identity that works in the postseason.
Hey,
run the football and defend.
I hope so tonight because I need them in fantasy to win and get in for the playoffs for me. I hope so. When I hear Jordan Love again, I think he's in that weird middle space for me when I talk about the major talent. What did I say earlier? if you do not have one of those quarterbacks that strikes fear in you, the guys you don't want to play, you better be loaded. Well, I just told you I don't think their roster is loaded. And while he can overachieve, I'm just not scared of Jordan Love. I don't think you're scared of Jordan Love either. I think you have him maybe on a higher platform, a slightly higher platform than I have him. I think Jordan Love is probably around, oh God, I can't go through it right now, but probably around like the 11th, maybe 10, 11, 12 range, 9, 10, 11, 12 range, somewhere in there for quarterbacks. So he's not like that top 4 guy that can go out and just win you the ball game. And I don't think their roster is Eagle-like or Lion-like or 49er-like of last year. So that's kind of why I think they're in the middle ground, but you never know. And the funniest part is I'm betting on them and rooting for them tonight. So foot in mouth, Scotty.
It's interesting, man. I don't know. They have an identity that, if you like the Eagles' identity, they have something similar. They have something similar going on there. And I just imagine now that'll be the kicker why it's so important for them to beat the Lions tonight, win their division. Getting that home field advantage at Lambeau would be a game changer in the postseason, at least against, other teams that are below them. In the cold, right now, like, don't get me wrong. I'm taking the Eagles over the Packers. Obviously, they're higher in the power rankings. I'm taking a couple of these teams over the Packers, but they are interesting. Like, can Jordan Love just play a little bit better? Then what does it look like? But we'll see, man. We'll see how the season finishes out. I'm with you tonight, though. This is an interesting matchup. Who do you feel like needs this game more? Who needs it more?
Well, I think the Packers, without a doubt, need it more in terms of staying in the race for the division lead. Because the Packers are already trailing both the Vikings and the Lions.
Fair.
So if you lose this one, now you're at 9-4. The Lions are sitting at 12-1. We're talking about a 3-game difference with what will be 4 left. That would ultimately eliminate the Packers from not being a wild card. But I think the Packers are more conditioned to play elsewhere come playoff time. So I think it does mean a little bit more to the Lions to ensure that they remain atop the NFC, because I think the Packers can adapt. Anyone can play in a dome.
Yeah.
You want the Lions coming here? You want the Lions going to Lambeau? I'm not saying they're there, but like if the Bears were to play, you want the Lions going up to Chicago in January. You want the Lions. The Lions are great. We've had this conversation a lot. I'm interested to see if Jared Goff has to play outside of that dome in the winter. That's what I'm waiting to see. So I think that the Packers numerically, statistically need it more, but I think the Lions, like, emotion as a team, need it more, because I don't think they want to have to go somewhere else in January, where the Packers, I think, can do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair, man. There's 2 things I'm looking at in this game tonight between these 2 teams. You look at Detroit, obviously, the rushing attack, the 2-headed monster they have in their backfield. And you talk about Jared Goff, like, what do you want to do when you play the Lions? Make Jared Goff beat you, ultimately. Green Bay, man, last couple games, held CMC to 31 yards on 11 attempts. I know, coming back from injury, it's not the same CMC, but still, 31 yards on 11 attempts. Held Miami to 39 rushing yards last week on Thanksgiving. So the rush defense has been pretty sturdy for the Green Bay Packers. As we saw over this weekend as well, though, we saw the number 1 rush attack go against the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL, and we saw what won that. So does this mean that the Packers are going to shut down that 2-headed monster out of the backfield for Detroit? No, but it is an interesting matchup. I think it's possible, is what I'm trying to say. The other thing I'm looking at here is, the turnover battle, obviously, but more specifically, Jordan Love versus an opportunistic Lions defense that does like to get turnovers. They're not the greatest between the hashes, but they are an opportunistic defense. They do get turnovers. You look at the 2 league leaders in interceptions in this game, and Xavier McKinney, he plays for the Packers, obviously, but Kirby Joseph. They're both tied for 7 interceptions. So that is something to keep an eye on tonight. Green Bay, 5 straight road victories in the division in this NFC North. So they are road dogs in their division. They like doing it. They're capable.
We gotta get.
It's interesting. As you can see, we're trying to talk this into existence.
Yeah.
We obviously want and need the Packers to win this game tonight.
Again, Jordan Love, fantasy owner, win and get in playoff time for fantasy.
There we go.
All eyes are on the Packers scoring for me tonight. So what in the honky tonk bullshit is this? You know, when you go to look at an alt spread and like if you lower it by half a point or a point, it'll like move the line a little bit. Like let's say +3 is -110, and then you go to +3.5, it'll be -120, and then +4 is -125 or -130. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The Green Bay Packers +3 is the line right now on DraftKings. That line is at +100.
Yeah.
If you alt it to +3.5, it moves to -134.
Yeah.
What in the honky tonk type of bullshit is that? What is that line movement?
That's crazy.
I mean, no, it's -110 to -120, -120 to -125 to -135. You go from +100 to -135?
And good luck betting the running backs to score tonight, man.
Yeah,
just make the odds unenjoyable. So, like the one that gets me, man, like, okay, David Montgomery and Josh Jacobs, sure, because they're power backs, they're going to get most of those goal line carries. And I know Montgomery and Gibbs go back and forth basically, but Gibbs -155. I get it. He could score through the air and on the ground, but like -155, like he's the most likely to score. Okay,
dude,
whatever.
And also for you there,
yeah,
I think I read a stat earlier that the Green Bay Packers haven't given up like 60 yards rushing each of like the last 2 or 3 games.
Yeah,
they've been very stellar against the run. No Jair Alexander, like D-Rab was pointing out, that could kill them. I think they've been without Jair for the last like 2 or 3 weeks though. Or he's missed time sporadically throughout the last couple of weeks in the year. So we'll see. But it's almost game time.
Yeah.
And I know it's not an Eagles game, but I'm fired up for this game. I'm not fired up just from fantasy football or from a betting perspective. I'm fired up because this means something to the Eagles.
Yeah.
So I got my cheese head on tonight, Scotty.
Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go, baby. We go upstairs and play some Wayne.
James Willis is gonna hate us, but I'm sorry, brother. We are here to guide our Eagles to the righteous land, and unfortunately, that involves a Lions.
Let me throw this out there to wrap up the show, and it's a conversation we could pick up tomorrow on the Faith Fanatic Show. So we want the Eagles to get the 1 seed. That's why tonight's feels pretty important, right? Because we need the Lions to lose a game or 2. We need to just keep winning. In theory, with how the Lions have been playing, you would assume if the Eagles want the NFC to go through Philadelphia and get the number 1 seed in the bye, they'd have to win out. In theory, let's just say.
Yeah.
So if the Eagles were to win out and get the 1 seed like we want, that would mean the Eagles had won 15 straight games heading into the postseason. And then if the Eagles were to go on and win the Super Bowl, which is the ultimate goal, why we want the 1 seed, to have the best route to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, they'd have to win 3 more with the bye week. So they'd have to win 18 straight games to win the Super Bowl. My question is, how do we feel about that? Because we want the 1 seed. Obviously, it gives us the best chance. Yeah. But let's be honest. You hear of a lot of teams winning 18 straight games and winning a Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure I remember one of the greatest football teams with the greatest quarterback and second greatest wide receiver ever going undefeated, marching through the AFC, and then losing to the lesser Manning brother, because that's how hard it is to win that many games in a row. So my question is, how, like that, it's more of like a vibes kind of question. Like, do we want to get one out of the way? No, I want the Eagles to win each and every game they play, and I want the 1 seed. It's the best outcome for them to win a Super Bowl. But How many teams you hear winning 18 in a row? Scotty winning the Super Bowl.
I don't know, man. All I'm gonna say is if you're great, you're great. If they can stay healthy, it doesn't matter, man.
Hey, let me throw
Keep
this out.
Saquon healthy.
Hold on. I agree. There's none greater than number 12 in New England, brother. And even he went 17-0 and then 19-0 and then lost in the big one. So
yeah, but he didn't have this iron. This iron on iron. That's the thing, man.
No,
his iron wasn't that strong. He's not built like Saquon.
Yeah, no, he just had Randy Moss on the outside and Bill Belichick steering the ship. But
nah, man.
Something we can talk about tomorrow. It's one of those GB, like, what do we want to happen? Because that's
but it's like if you win that many games in a row, man, you just don't look back. You take those W's and you keep moving forward, pushing forward. There will be losses within the wins, even if you do win out the rest of the way. So you can still have the learning lessons. Like what did we say coming out of that Dallas game, right? Jalen Hurts gets that interception out of the way before he takes on his tougher competition coming up in the Commanders and the oh my God, why does it slip in my head? The Rams and the Ravens, of course. So it is interesting. You can have like little losses or learning lessons because that's the only reason that I would like not necessarily want them to lose, but just to have like a reality check, right? Like bring them back to earth, let them know that their shit does indeed stink. Like you do have to still work hard the rest of this season to win the Super Bowl. That would be the only reason. But like right now, bro, the culture that this team. Let's talk about it tomorrow. This isn't an Eagles show.
I just want to throw a little.
The culture with this team, though. The culture with this team.
Are we laying Packers +3?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But no, it's funny that the odds dropped though from 3 to 3.5. Because I at least had it at like -120 earlier for +3.5.
How they do that to you?
+100. I do like Green Bay over 23.5 points as well, but once again, lacks
a little bit. Is that where their line's at?
Nah. well, it's funny. I think technically their line is 24.5.
23.5 is -135 though. Yeah, fuck that. I ain't taking 24.5 and getting hit on that.
I know. There. That's why I like that 23.5, man. You lose a little bit of juice, but I do like the Packers to get some points up tonight. Golf interception is also interesting, man. +110.
Fuck yeah.
So it all feeds it. I'm going all in on the Packers tonight, dog. All in except for the money line, which is what we need the most. It is interesting, though, man. It's going to be a great game, though. Lions at home.
Fucking, I'm laying this spread at +100 real quick before we wrap up out of here.
All right, let's do it then, man.
Bet.
I'll lay it too.
Placed. Good vibes. Good vibes. Can't wait to like turn on Amazon Prime and immediately be down 7-0.
The Lions come out and drop 50 points tonight.
What a start. Nah. Go win a ball game, cheeseheads.
Go have some dignity, Packers.
30 of you still in the chat. You've been in here basically all show. I know basically only Darius has commented. Are you guys watching on Twitter? If you are, follow us. And then check out
Terry some credit.
Subscribe. Terry's in there. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but Terry's got the Go Lions.
He's a hater.
The little jab we get from Terry. Make sure to subscribe. It's the only spot we can see your comments if you do want to be interactive with us. Subscribe to this channel, to the Scotty Talks NBA channel, and to the DSM Philadelphia channel. We'll be live there tomorrow noon, 1, noon, 11, doesn't matter. On Scotty's lunch break for an hour or so. So subscribe, follow, go Pack Go, and enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.
We sure would, Terry.